Hi, good day to you. This is Dr. Amihan, your humble servant in health in the northern part of Antique. Welcome to today's talk. How are you? I hope that you are in good hands at the comfort of your home. We are about to discuss now the reason why Omicron variant is extremely and highly transmissible SARS-CoV-2 variant. Without any doubt that it is highly infectious compared to the Delta variant. Please watch. We have to review the evidences. Many people or even our patients ask their healthcare professionals, why is it that the Omicron variant is highly transmissible and highly infectious compared to the Delta variant? And most of the answers that they get is the reason because the Omicron variant has many mutations in its receptor binding domain, in its spike proteins. So it has more or less 50 mutations in its receptor binding domain and its spike proteins. But we will discuss the reasons why it is less severe disease and highly transmissible. Many scientists have said, and other researchers, that one of the reasons Omicron variant is highly transmissible because it enters the cells in two pathways or routes. So one is it enters in the surface of the cell through fusion triggered by your tempress 2, or what we call your transmembrane serine protease 2. And the second reason is that it enters the cell through endosomal fusion triggered by cathepsins L and B. Your cathepsins is known as your lysosomal cysteine protease. So it is one of the reasons Omicron is highly transmissible because it infects the cells in two pathways, but it enters the cells more on the second pathway, the endosomal fusion triggered by your cathepsins. Okay, and your excuse me. Your Delta variant enters the cell surface fusion triggered by the tempress 2, which use the ACE2 receptor and the spike proteins of the Delta variant. Whereas your Omicron enters in two pathways. That's the reason why it is highly transmissible and it is highly infectious. So these two pathways, the route 2, of which the Omicron variant use, it can enter the cells easily using the cathepsin enzymes, because these cathepsins cuts the spike protein and your S2 in between the S1 and S2 subunits. So it is hard to understand, but I will make it easy for you with these illustrations. Please watch. Now, this is your pathway 1 or your route 1 that is used by your Omicron variant in entering the cells. This is also used by your Delta variant, SARS-CoV-2 variant. Okay, so this is your SARS-CoV-2, your spike protein. Okay, and this is your tempress enzyme. This is the one that cleaves or cut or sever the S1 and S2 domain or subunits. This is your ACE2 of your human cell. Now, your spike protein binds with your ACE2, and then after binding, your tempress will appear and cut this one. So it will cut this one. Your spike protein between the S1 and the S2 subunits. Now, once it cuts, the virus, SARS-CoV-2 virus, will bind and enter the cell, okay, where it will deliver its RNA genes or genome in the cell. Okay, this is the first pathway or route used by the Delta variant, at the same time your Omicron. The second route is this one. Okay, so this is your SARS-CoV-2, this is your cell, and this is your ACE2, this is our spike protein. So once your spike protein binds with your cell, your human cell, the human cell will invaginate or eat the SARS-CoV-2, and after eating it, this is called what we call invagination or eating of your cell. This is what you call phagocytosis, eating of your cell. Your SARS-CoV-2 is eaten by your human cell. So this is now your SARS-CoV-2 inside the cell with cathepsins. So this is now your cathepsins, your lysosomal cysteine protease. So you have to follow the arrow. No? Okay. Then after that, please wait. This is now what happens. Once your SARS-CoV-2 enters the cell, this is your human cell, it will become now what we call endosome. Endosomes are vesicles or organelles or what we call little organs with specific functions. It is formed by invagination or pincing of the cell. Okay, so from the outside it will get inside because it is eaten by the human cell. Now this is your SARS-CoV-2. Inside the SARS-CoV-2, your B and L cathepsins will also get inside the container. This is now your container, or what you call endosome or little organs with the SARS-CoV-2 inside. Together with the SARS-CoV-2, you have your cathepsins. This is your lysosomal cysteine proteases. This is your nucleus. This is the cytoplasm of the cell, meaning inside the cell. Now, this is now your SARS-CoV-2. This is the ACE2 receptor. This one, the ACE2 receptor. And this is your spike proteins of the virus inside the endosome or little organs. Now, what will the cathepsins do? The cathepsins do, since it is an enzyme, it will cut now the S1 and S2 subunits of your spike protein inside the endosome or the little organs. The other pathway, instead of cathepsins, the receptor binding domain or what we call the spike protein will be cut by the tempress, but in this one, it will be cut by your cathepsins. Now, once it is cut, okay, this is what will happen inside. This is your insides of the cell, and this is your virus, SARS-CoV-2. Once it is cut, the okay, once it is cut, it will now create a hole here. It will create a hole. Okay, so this is now what happened. There is a hole, and your RNA genome, or the genes of the virus, will be delivered inside the cell. This is now what happened. So this is now your SARS-CoV-2 genes, RNA, within the cell cytoplasm. Okay, so the genes now is inside the cell of the human cell, and where it will begin translation and replication and production of more virus inside the cell. This is what the Omicron variant use in entering the cells. Majority of your Omicron enters in this pathway, in this route. Okay? So it enters the cell through, by the way of phagocytosis, meaning it is eaten by the human cell, the virus itself. And the virus grows inside the cell of the humans. Okay? You have tried to remember this one, that in this pathway, the second pathway of route 2, this is how the Omicron variant used in entering the human cell. And it is very effective because it makes the virus highly transmissible and highly infectious. Now that we already discussed the reason why Omicron variant is highly transmissible and highly infectious, because it uses two pathways in entering the cells. To recap, one is it uses the surface cell fusion triggered by your TMPRSS2 by binding the angiotensin converting enzyme 2 or ACE2 with your spike protein. Second is endosomal fusion triggered by your cathepsins, or the pathway where the SARS-CoV-2 is practically eaten by our cells. This is what we call phagocytosis. Okay? So, another reason why it also replicates more faster. Actually, research scientists have discovered through the research that Omicron variant multiplies or replicates 70 times in the upper respiratory tract, meaning in the nasopharyngeal area, in the nose, and in the upper lung. What is the reason for that? The reason for that is why it replicates 70 times more faster than Delta, and it makes the virus, the SARS-CoV-2 Omicron variant, more transmissible and highly infectious, is that in the upper airway, in the nose, and in the upper respiratory tract, or in the upper airway, there are 70 times more cells that expresses ACE2 receptor and TMPRSS, or ACE2 receptor, ACE2 receptor with cathepsin you call that, expressing cells. So meaning there are more ACE2 and with cathepsins cells that are present in the upper airway. So that's the reason why your Omicron variant thrives more in the upper respiratory tract than in the lungs, because in the lower respiratory tract, researchers have found out that it is 10% less replication in the lower lungs. So it will cause less severe symptoms because it is replicating or multiplying fast in the upper airways of our respiratory tract, not in the lungs. Because of that, many cells with ACE2 receptor plus endosomal cathepsin protease expression, okay, in the upper respiratory tract. In the lower lung, there is less ACE2 with endosomal cathepsin enzymes in the lungs. It is more on the upper respiratory tract. So more Omicron variant will multiply up in our respiratory tract than in the lower respiratory tract, and it will cause less severe symptoms. Okay? Second, because of this mutations in the Omicron variant, yes, it has many mutations, but most of the mutations resulted to its attenuation in function, meaning it decreased its severity and virulence. Because not all mutations cause virulence of the virus. It will also weakens the virus virulence. It will decrease its virulence. Because the main purpose of the virus is to spread, not to kill the organisms or the host that it will infect. Because once it infects its host and it causes severe disease, the host will die, and the virus will also die with the host. So what will the virus do to increase its transmission? It will cause less severe symptoms in order to live longer, in order to survive. That is the main purpose of the virus. Okay? It will cause less severe disease in order to live longer and to replicate more and to transmit more disease than killing the host. That is the main purpose of the virus. So, the virus has many mutations that is attenuated, or meaning decrease in severity. One of the reasons why it also increased transmission and infection, became highly infectious, is that it infects more cells in the upper respiratory tract because it uses two routes. One is your endosomal pathway, where our cells eat, quote unquote, or phagocytose the virus. Second is it will enter the cells through the cell surface fusion triggered by your transmembrane serine protease 2 that binds with the ACE2 receptors of the cells, of the human cells. So it enters in two pathways. So if it enters in two pathways, but more on your endosomal fusion triggered by your cathepsins, naturally it will infect more cells. That is the result, one of the result of its mutations, that it increase what you call cellular tropism, or it loves to enter the cells in two pathways. That is cellular tropism. Third, Omicron variant, once it acts to enter the cells, it is not inhibited by your interferon induced transmembrane proteins. What is the meaning of that? Your ITM, or your interferon induced transmembrane protein, is the first defense with regards to, is the first defense of our cells against the viral entry or infections. If this is your cells and this is the virus, there are interferons there. This is what we call your interferon induced transmembrane proteins that will block the entry of the virus inside the cell. So this Omicron variant, because of its many mutations, it is not easily be inhibited by or blocked by your IFITM, or your interferon induced transmembrane proteins. So that is the third reason. Fourth reason, which is very important, because this is used by the Delta variant. That's the reason why Delta variant is very severe in infecting and killing people. And we accept that fact because it is true. And I myself is one of the victims of that. Luckily, with God's help, I survived. Okay, so this is the reason why. Researchers have found out recently that Omicron variant, because of its multiple mutations, it reduces or decreases or its ability to make syncytia formation is reduced or being attenuated because of that multiple mutations. So the mutations itself causes less virulence of the virus, which is very good for us. But it has a mutations that causes syncytia formation. But as what I've said, that ability is being attenuated, or it's been reduced because of the mutations. It has P681R mutations that enhances cleavage, that enhances increase syncytia formation, plus it also has N679K mutations that will also cause enhances cleavage and syncytia formation. What is syncytia formation? This is what I will tell you, because syncytia formation is very successfully been used by the Delta variant to kill, infect, and kill cells and cause more severe and critical COVID symptoms or even death in its victims. But as what I've said, this Omicron variant doesn't cause more of syncytia formation. Okay, what is syncytia formation? Syncytia formation is the ability of the virus to command the human cell to infect other cells through what? eating your polymorphonuclear cells or your lymphocytes. Okay? They eat literally your lymphocytes, your polymorphonuclears. And once they eat, it will fuse to a bigger cells. So meaning to say, if this is your cells, okay, and the virus infects the cells, this is one cell and then another cell. Okay, once it infects this cell, it will hijack the machinery of the virus and command the cell. You have to infect other cells by what? Eating other cells. So two cells now will produce, and these two cells will also command the other neighboring cells to fuse with us or combine with us to form a bigger cells. To such extent that very big cells now, a combination of 2 to 20 more cells, which is very big, that is what we call giant cells, and it will be identified now by your polymorphonuclears or your macrophages or your lymphocytes. And since this is a big cell, it will swallow your lymphocytes. What will happen? Your lymphocytes and other bigger cells in your body that defends you from infection will also be eaten, and it will reduce and decrease in amount. What will be the effect of that? The effect of that is there will be less cells that will counter the virus. Okay? So meaning to say, your soldiers now and your policemen in the body will, instead of having 1 million, it will now be decreased to 10,000. Or it will be decreased to 20,000 from 1 million because it is been eaten by your cells that grows big through fusion of other cells or joining of other cells. So your lymphocytes will be eaten and your other soldiers in the body, other cells that destroys the virus. But instead they cannot destroy the virus, but they are now eaten by your cells, which is just getting big. It will be just like a Pac-Man eating other cells on the way. What will be the effect of that? That is main reason why you have what we call in your complete blood count. When the doctor examine your complete blood count, there will be what we call decrease of your lymphocytes, or what we call lymphopenia, meaning a decrease of your lymphocytes, because lymphocytes is involved in fighting bacteria and microorganisms, infectious microorganisms in the body, especially viruses. So that is the result of that, and it a sign of a very severe disease if you have lymphopenia, a decrease or a reduced numbers of your lymphocytes. And to tell you, as what I've said, Delta variant is very effective in causing philopedia or syncytia formation in the lower lungs. So that's the reason why it causes severe disease, because your pneumocytes will fuse to each other. The cells that is involved in carbon dioxide and oxygen exchange. So it is destroyed by the various, and it will be rotten like destroyed tissues, lung tissues inside, so you cannot breathe. There will be no exchange of your carbon dioxide. Instead of oxygen coming in your body, it cannot enter the lung cells because it is being destroyed and made into a one big cell fused by the virus, and that is what we call syncytia formation. And to tell you again, it doesn't happen in Omicron variant, so it has a less disease or less symptoms, less severe disease. But other variants, especially your Delta, is very effective in using your syncytia formation. That is a reason why it produces very severe and critical symptoms and even death in the persons that it infects. Okay, so I hope that you understand the very long story of that disease severity caused by the Omicron variant versus the Delta variant. That is what we call the pathophysiology of the disease caused by different SARS-CoV-2 variant. So once again, this is your humble servant in health, Dr. Amihan, in the northern part of Antique, wishing you good luck and have the best of everything. Godspeed and see you next. Bye. And please don't forget to subscribe and to share and like, since it is free. Thank you. That is one way of helping me. Bye.